Hello, I'm John. Welcome or welcome back. Today I've got four action novels to talk about. One of them is kind of action horror, and I read them all I want to say that I read them all in December of last year, so December of 2025. And these aren't really going to be reviews or anything like that. It's really been too long since I have read these to give them proper, thorough reviews. And I was just kind of reading for fun. I wasn't planning to do reviews of these, so I wasn't taking notes or anything like that. Uh, I enjoyed some of these. In fact, I enjoyed all of them, but there was one that I didn't quite connect with for certain reasons. And I'm going to start off with 6 Days of the Condor, which has my vote for best cover of all the books that I read last year. I really, really like that cover. I like the blue. I like the just kind of the stark quality of the back with these red letters here, and the guy and the pistol and the bullet holes in the glass. And I just really, really like that. As for the book itself, I enjoyed it. I had a good time reading this. It was an enjoyable read. It was not the best book that I have ever read by far, but it was an interesting concept, and it is kind of a I don't know if it's unique, but it very well seems unique. It is about a man named Ronald Malcolm, and he works for the CIA. He is not an actual CIA agent. When he was in college, all he wanted to do was read mystery novels and thrillers and spy novels and that sort of thing. And he was getting really bad grades, and one of his professors came in and was talking to him and said, I think I might have an idea of a job that you might like. Would you like to read mysteries and spy novels and thrillers and action novels for money? And he says, sure, why not? And it is a job with the CIA where he sits and he reads these books all day and he writes reports about them so the CIA can take them and maybe find trends that are going on in in literature or in books, and they can perhaps take some of these skills that are used in these books and put them to real life use and see if they work, see if they don't work, see if some of these plans are viable and that sort of thing. They are taking inspiration from fiction, and so they work in an office in Washington D.C. and Ronald Malcolm does not enjoy his job really. He likes the reading part and he doesn't mind the report parts, but he is portrayed as being this kind of honestly, he's a kind of obnoxious, rebellious character for no discernible reason. That's just the way he is. He's kind of rude. He's kind of unpleasant. And so the people that he works with don't really like him, and he doesn't really like them. But there are only a few of them, and they are all in the same business. They all, except for a security guard and a lady who runs the front desk, they all read all day long and write reports. And they send these reports off every day. Well, one of the men in this office has been going through, he is new to this job, and he's been going through, he's sort of the financial officer, and he has found these crates of books that were ordered but that never showed up. And so he starts asking everyone in the office about these books, and they just kind of go, yeah, yeah, whatever. They're not really interested at all. But it's his job, so he's trying to find out. And so there is this plot going on behind the scenes that none of these people are aware of. And the man asking all these questions is onto something, and the people who are behind this plot are not happy about it at all. And so they send in a hit squad, and while Ronald Malcolm is sent out to get sandwiches, and he takes forever. He doesn't care what they want. He just takes the list and wads it up and throws it out, and he goes out through a back door, and he goes off to take to lunch, and spends a really long time at lunch, just kind of dawdling around for no reason. Once again, he is just kind of a rude and obnoxious character for no reason. And when he comes back, everyone in the office is dead, and he runs off to find a phone, and he calls up so there is a number they gave him. It's like a crash number. So he calls up the crash desk at the CIA and he talks to the crash officer. And basically that means that everything going on everywhere else in the world just is not nearly as important as this that is going on right now. So everything focuses on this one incident. And the reason this is called 6 Days of the Condor is because Ronald Malcolm's code name is Condor. So when he calls up, he has to say that his name is Condor. And they talk to him and find out what's going on. And they say, well, we're going to send the police. We're going to send someone to pick you up. And he says, well, who do you want to come pick you up? We're going to send your boss, and we're going to send some other person that you know and trust. So he picks a man from the training, the school that trained him to do this. He's had a little bit of training, but he is not a full-fledged agent and is not on that pathway. What they don't know is that the man, his boss, is part of this plot. And he is very, very angry that Malcolm was not in the office when this went down. So when they go to meet up, his boss pulls out a gun and starts shooting at him. And Malcolm has picked up a gun from one of the desks in the office and is shooting back. And he shoots his boss, and his boss shoots the guy who trained Ronald Malcolm. So now there's this whole thing going on because the boss lived, and he's lying about what happened. So they are now hunting down Ronald Malcolm as a potential spy or something like that. They don't know who has done this. And so this is all about Ronald Malcolm's 6 days on the run from these people who want to catch him, the good guys, the bad guys. He cuts his hair, he shaves, I think he has a beard, he shaves his beard off, he dresses like, he goes into a army supply store and he comes out dressed like a soldier, and he pretends to be back from Vietnam or something like that. And so this would have been, 74, Vietnam was winding down by then. But he's sitting in a diner, and he hears there are two young women sitting behind him, and he's listening to their conversation. And one of them is named Wendy, and she is on vacation for 2 weeks. But she has just, I can't remember if she has broken up with her boyfriend or what has happened, but she's just going to spend 2 weeks sitting at home doing nothing. And he follows her out to her car, pretends that he knows her, sticks a gun in her side, and tells her to drive. So right away, that's pretty frightening. He doesn't ask for help or anything like that. He just, hey, she doesn't know what's going on. He tries to convince her that he is with the CIA. He's able to do that, and they go on the run together. And I don't want to give away too much more. That's the setup for it. I will say that there's a romance that develops between Ronald and Wendy, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's not very well done. Now, we also focus on one of the hitmen, so a man named, what is his name? I had to write it down because I can't remember it. It's not, in the movie, he's called Jobert. In the book, he's called Moronic, and that's just kind of, it's a name that you're not entirely sure how to pronounce, and you're never given a hint about how to pronounce it. And Moronic is not like Jobert in the movie. He is very much a ruthless, unpleasant, all about the money kind of person, and he is also in on this plot. He is not like a third party or anything like that, like in the movie. And so he is going all around. He has this team, and they are trying to track down Ronald Malcolm. And so the movie, Robert Redford, Faye Dunaway, it's called 3 Days of the Condor. It is really, really good. It is worth watching. It's from not too long after this came out, because as you can see, there's a blurb on the cover here. This edition is from 1975. It's a very good movie, and I think it really tightens up the plot. It sort of intensifies the scheme of these bad guys in the book, whereas their scheme in this book is a little bit more common and a little bit more petty than in the movie. This has a different ending from the movie, which is in a way satisfying for the book, and or not exactly the ending, but what happens between the hitman and Malcolm is quite different in the movie from what happens in this book. So this is worth reading. Uh, I still want to say that the movie is better, but this book is still pretty good. It's still enjoyable. So after that, we have Crimson Tide by Richard P. Henrick, and this is based on the screenplay of the movie Crimson Tide, but Richard P. Henrick also wrote a novella, I believe, with another writer that the screenplay was based on. So then he came back and he wrote this novel. And the screenplay for this novel, or the screenplay used for this novel, is very similar to the one that wound up in the movie, but it has some key differences. But the major plot lines are still the same. So Richard P. Henrick has the distinction, the dubious distinction, of being one of the worst writers of dialogue that I have ever encountered. I kind of like his books, but his dialogue is just like nails on a chalkboard awful. He's one of the writers that made me realize that it's a good thing if writers will sit down and speak their dialogue aloud. I wish so much that he had done that in his other books. Whereas this novel follows the dialogue of the screenplay, and so it was written by other people, and so it's not quite as bad. And the book itself is actually quite good. He was quite good about writing action and having us see the inside of these submarines and how things are working on these submarines. But he just was not good with dialogue. Uh, so the basic plot of this book is that there has been a coup in Russia. So this was written in, well, this version was written in 1995. So there has been a coup in Russia. So Russia has become a democracy, and people are kind of longing for the Soviet ways, for the the strength and the power of the old Soviet days. So there's a coup, and some of the old Soviet leaders take over. One in particular, and they capture a military base. I think it's in Vladivostok, which is on the far east coast of Russia, if I remember right. And there's like a submarine base and a Navy base there. And they have acquired nuclear launch codes for these missile silos. And so the United States government sends out the USS Alabama, which is a boomer. It's an SSBN. It is a nuclear ballistic missile silo that floats under the water and can launch its missiles anytime. And it is the captain of the Alabama is a man named Ramsey. You have to forgive me, I don't remember his first name off the top of my head, but he is from the old days. He is very much a I do what I'm told kind of sailor, and he doesn't want to give much thought to what he has been asked to do. He just wants to carry out his duty. And something has happened. His XO has gotten appendicitis, and so he has called in, what is his name? I had to write it down here. He calls in a man named Ron Hunter, he has served on other submarines, and so he calls in Ron Hunter to be his XO on this potentially apocalyptic mission. And they leave from the west coast of the United States and they head for the east coast of Russia. And all this time, of course, they are underwater and they're cut off from the news, and they don't really know what's going on in Russia. And the man who is in charge in Russia, the man leading this coup, is kind of, there is something about Richard P. Henrick that I don't really like, which is that he has a tendency to portray his Russian characters as stereotypes, and they're just not believable. They're very cardboard, like cartoonish villains, and that mars his books to me because it's just not realistic. I have never been able to agree or to accept this idea that the most powerful Soviet politicians were really talking about, ideology and all that behind closed doors. I have a feeling that like most politicians, they were really talking about how can we make more money, how can we get more of this, how can we I just I and Henrik really pushes the ideology, and it seems it's a little cartoonish, and I don't like that. This leader is portrayed as just being pretty much insane. And really, the leader of this rebellion, this coup, is exactly like the leader in another book where I cannot remember the name of his other book that it came out of. I don't know if this will tell me because no, it's not going to tell me what that book was called, unfortunately. But he decides he is going to just take a preemptive strike at the U.S. for no discernible reason whatsoever. Like they haven't done anything to him. They are not coming to get him or anything like that. There has been no combat between them. He just goes, well, I'm going to get the launch codes and launch these missiles. Okie dokie. How's that going to... You're not going to be leader of anything for very long, are you, buddy? I mean, where's the thought process there? It doesn't make any sense. And I think Richard P. Henrick, he might have had... Okay, so in another book I read, with the same leader, the same setup, the same kind of lunacy of I'm just going to launch this and live in my dacha and whatever, and it's not going to affect me at all that the world is in this nuclear apocalypse. A young woman shows up with these launch codes. This is the same setup as the other book, and she's wearing white fur, like a white fur coat. And of course, she's completely naked under that fur coat. So that is something that has come up multiple times in Richard Henrick's book. So I kind of wonder if that's kind of something that he really enjoys imagining. Anyway, so the USS Alabama is floating underwater towards the east coast of Russia, and the Russian dictator guy decides that he's going to use these submarines under his command to just attack other submarines, other ships for no reason. Again, they have not bothered him. They haven't done anything against him. And so the Alabama is engaged in combat with one of these Russian subs, and in the middle of this, they receive a launch order. So they are to proceed to a point. They're to immediately raise and fire their missiles at Vladivostok. And the USS Alabama is an Ohio-class sub, if I remember right. And so it carries a whole... It's hard to explain this because it seems excessive, but it is the truth. It carries something like 18 or 20 missiles, and each of them has a MIRV. So a MIRV is a multiple reentry vehicle. It's a multiple independently targeted reentry vehicle, which means that each missile carries multiple warheads, which each can be targeted at a different point. And they are ordered to fire 10 of them. And so they go through this whole process and say, okay, we're going to launch these missiles. Everything is authenticated. They still have this Russian sub after them. They come towards the surface, and in the middle of all this, they receive a second transmission. The Russian sub comes back, tries to sink them, and the way that these subs communicate is they run these very, very long antennas, and they use ultra low frequency radio waves to pick these up. So in the middle of this, their antenna is cut, and this transmission goes. It's cut off in the middle of this transmission. That's what I'm trying to say. So they don't know what it is about. Well, when they go to launch the missiles, the XO says, and they've already had this sort of antagonism growing between the XO and the captain have had this antagonism growing between them because the XO is like college educated. He's very smart. He has ideas that are very different from the captain's. And the XO says, I do not agree with this launch order. I do not agree with you. That means that by the laws of the Navy, we cannot launch these missiles. There is a clear code. We cannot launch these missiles if I do not agree with you, and I do not agree. And the captain says, screw you. You're relieved. I'm going to replace you. Well, that's not how that works. He cannot do that. And the crew know this. And so the XO relieves the captain of duty and takes over the USS Alabama. And his argument is that if this transmission is an abort, that means that if they rise and they launch their missiles, then they will be starting the apocalypse. This is the end of the world if they launch these missiles. It could be that the coup has been taken down, that this rebellion has been stopped, or it could be a second launch order, but they do not know because it has been cut off right in the middle of it. So the XO's argument is, well, there are other boats, there are all these other ships out there that can do this. We don't have to do this, and the captain disagrees. So the XO takes over the boat, relieves the captain, and confines him to his quarters. And the rest of the novel is about the captain trying to take over the boat from the XO. It's about the XO trying to get away from these Russian subs and to sink these Russian subs and save the Alabama. It is about, the captain does eventually come back into control of the boat and this titanic battle of wills. And it's really good. The movie is still better, right? So you got Gene Hackman, Denzel Washington. I think Viggo Mortensen is in it also. It is a very, very good movie, and you should watch it. I have said that before. You should watch Crimson Tide. And this is still good. This is still worth reading. It's enjoyable. It is an interesting look at a potential situation. The thing that kind of bothers me, and this may be a spoiler, but so the moment that the captain threatens to relieve his XO and replace him, that means that the captain is breaking the law. So from that point on, regardless of what the captain does, he has been trying to break the law. The XO is in the right, the captain is in the wrong. That's the way it is. But in this book and in the movie, that is not made clear, right? That is, it is made clear, but for some reason, like the captain just can't accept it. The other people who join the captain's side can't accept it. And the ending is rather, of the book and the movie, is rather ambiguous to that. But it is very clear that the captain was, in fact, in the wrong and breaking the law. So there's that. That's my art. That's the one thing I do not like about Crimson Tide. So the next couple, these will be shorter. So this is Able Team number 26 by Dick Stivers, The Iron God. So this is actually by Tom Arnett. This is from 1986, so very much in the Cold War period, Ronald Reagan years. And so Able Team is 3 members. You have Rosario Blancanales, who also goes by Politician, or just Paul for short. You have Gadget Schwartz, who's really good with electronics. And you have the Iron Man, Carl Lyons. And so this one's they're all kind of silly, to be honest. They're all really over the top. They're like action B movies. They're really enjoyable. Sometimes they're not very good, but they are entertaining. And they're always fighting, like I said, Libyan death squads, KGB, Spetsnaz, the IRA, just all kinds of, these groups that are out there in the world who want to take down America. And this one is about Hawaii. And there is an Ironman triathlon in Hawaii. And one of the people who is running in this Ironman triathlon is a very high up agent of the CIA who has all these, all this knowledge in his head. So the Russian Spetsnaz has come up with a plan to kidnap him and spirit him away to Russia and get all this information out of his head. And in the beginning, so the Spetsnaz have disguised themselves as a Russian athletic team. So the triathlon is running, bicycling, and swimming. And they have paid a young Hawaiian man to guide them around this island. And he thinks that they're kind of odd. Well, for one thing, they're kind of dismissive of him and kind of rude to him. But they will stop and sort of like lay down on the ground and be looking in weird places that have, it has nothing to do with bicycling or running or swimming. It's like they're planning something out, but he doesn't know what. And he doesn't really care. He just wants his money because he's saving up money. He's going to college. And, well, the head of this Russian team is looking at a piece of paper and kind of, looking around and looking at the ground and writing on this paper. And the wind takes this paper and blows it away. And so the young Hawaiian man runs over to grab it. And the moment that he does, all these Russian athletes stare at him and they start pulling out guns. And he runs for his life and they chase him all over. And he has to swim away. And eventually he's able to get to a beach and he sees some gang members that he just kind of knows. And they protect him from these guys. And so Rosario Blancanales, Paul, politician, is there with his girlfriend on vacation. And they get wrapped up in this that is going on. And somehow they come to the attention of the Spetsnaz. Oh, what it is that the young Hawaiian man has run to this place of refuge. Of the ancient Hawaiian religion, he has run to this place of refuge, and Paul Blancanales just happens to be there. Well, when the Spetsnaz show up, the leader of the Spetsnaz and Paul Blancanales recognize each other. So his vacation is immediately ruined. And they have to go on the run. They call in Iron Man and Gadget Schwartz, and they eventually they all get together and they are trying to warn this CIA man, hey, look, you are going to be kidnapped and taken to Russia and probably tortured for all this information in your head. And the guy's like, I don't like you guys. Take a hike, leave me alone. Screw you. I don't believe you. You just want me out of this race. And so Carl Lyons, in the beginning, they show up at the airport and the Spetsnaz is at the airport to stop them. And one of them shoots at Carl Lyons with a spear, like a spear gun. And it almost hits this Hawaiian princess. And Carl Lyons grabs the spear. And he has unknowingly recreated one of the Hawaiian legends or Hawaiian myths of Hawaii. And so they start calling him Lono. And which Lono is like a Hawaiian god. And they invite him to a luau and all this sorts of stuff. And the princess gets all wrapped up in this mission, and Carl Lyons doesn't really care about any of that. But he wants to protect this CIA guy, not because he likes the CIA guy, but because he does not want these secrets to fall into the Soviet hands. And so he joins this triathlon. And he is not in shape. He's in very, very good physical shape, but he is not trained for this at all. So it's a marathon, it's several miles of swimming, and it's something like 100 miles of bicycling. And so this book really focuses around Carl Lyons and his experience triathlon. It is very, very over the top. There's a lot of like motorcycle riding with machine guns and all sorts of things like that, and wearing disguises, and it's an enjoyable book though. I liked it. I like these Able Team books. I mean, like I said, they are like B movies, and B movies are fun. They are just entertainment, just for fun. And the last book is James Kendley's The Devouring God. It is also the book that I remember the least, and it is the one that I have read most recently, I believe. I may have read it before Crimson Tide. So this is part of a series. I'm not sure what the series is called, or maybe it's just a sequel. It takes place in Japan, and It is a little bit hard to explain what is going on, but this is really it reads kind of like a first or second draft that really should have been sat on a little bit longer and written a little bit better. So I hate to say that. I'm not a big fan of saying that. I know how hard it is to write a book. I know that from experience, so I don't like to say things like that, but I think this book really could have benefited from uh, a little bit more time and effort. It was still very interesting. It was an interesting plot, but it is about this group who has encountered in the previous book a sort of demon that they had to kill, and they are fighting against this corporation which is run by basically by a demon. He is not a human being, but there are certain rules that he can't break. So he had to bring in this team to fight this other demon, and this is about them afterwards. So they had to do some things which have made them kind of taboo in Japanese society, so they have trouble getting a job and that sort of thing. I cannot remember any of their names. I had trouble remembering their names even as I was reading this book. The main character is a very large man. He is very, very tall, very stout, and very powerful. And it is about him, his girlfriend. There is another young man who lives with them, and a monk who is part of a defunct order of some sort. It may have been Shinto. It doesn't really go into it very far, so I'm not exactly sure. Now, what is happening in this particular book is that there is a tooth of a tooth of a god. Someone has found a tooth of a devouring god, and it causes people to go nuts and flay other people alive and eat all the meat off their bones and build structures out of their bones. That is very disturbing, and that is a very interesting concept of this book, about what this book is about. It is a very, very interesting idea about how these four people are going to stop this from happening. Somehow this tooth has fallen into a young American man's hands. He's like an English teacher or something of that nature in Japan, or an English tutor, and it really messes him up. So he has started to do these sorts of things, but somehow the tooth gets away from him, and it starts to cause these bad things to happen in other places. And this is all about them tracking it down. Meanwhile, the monk that lives with them, he is experiencing a ravenous hunger. He is just eating everything in sight. And so they come into contact with this demon who runs this corporation, and he's giving them kind of hints about what's going on and hints about where to find this, and he wants the tooth for himself. I don't remember too much more than that. It was okay. It was not great. It needed more work. So it was still a very, very interesting concept. I thought it was interesting how this devouring god's tooth is finally overcome in the end. So anyway, that is my 35-minute talk about 4 books. The Devouring God by James Kendley, Able Team, The Iron God by Tom Arnett, Crimson Tide by Richard P. Henrick, based on the screenplay by Michael Schiffer, from a story by Richard P. Henrick and Michael Schiffer. So we'll give them credit. And 6 Days of the Condor by James Grady. And I hope that was okay. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to say about these books as I was going into this. And it has been some time since I have read these, but I felt like I needed to do a video because I am badly, badly out of practice at this. And so if this was not the best video, I do apologize for that, but it was fun to do. And to be fair, video making over the past little while has not been fun for me. So it is good to have just a fun little moment. Okay. So I want to thank you very much for joining me. Let me know if you've read these, and I'll see you next time.